Here it is, one of the most recognizable episodes of SpongeBob to date, SB-129. What makes this episode memorable though? Well, first off, before I dive into my thoughts on this episode, what happens in this episode is that SpongeBob and Patrick try and get Squidward to go jellyfishing with them. After constantly being annoyed by their presence, Squidward hides in the Krusty Krab freezer in order to try and get away from them. When they leave, Squidward accidentally locks himself inside the freezer and finally gets out after 2,000 years and is now in the future. He then tries to get back to his current time period. When he attempts to travel to the past, he ends up in a prehistoric era where everything is all primitive, including SpongeBob and Patrick. After teaching them how to jellyfish, he then goes back into the time machine and ends up in a weird place where everything is just complete emptiness. This is the most famous scene in the episode and perhaps maybe in the whole show, as its weird quirkiness breaks the boundaries, even for SpongeBob, as when Squidward says alone, a bunch of text bubbles come up and a bunch of weird noises start to talk. When he finally finds the time machine, he finally gets back to his current time of day and everything goes back to normal. Yeah, I must say, even with my description, this doesn't do the episode justice as it's famous for how unique it is. I don't really have much to say, but I'll do my best as words don't really get the full feeling of what this episode does. First off, the scenes with Squidward going into the future and past were both pretty cool, and it's interesting to see these new environments that have their own unique twist. Another thing is that Squidward going through all of these wacky scenarios, as honestly, he's the only character that would work for this, as his sense of reality comes into play in this episode, which works well in the episode's favor. However, the most iconic part of this episode is the void part. It's just the feeling of when Squidward says alone and all of these tiny voices start to appear, and Squidward realizing how bad he messed up and just misses everything, even the things that he hates, and just wants to go home. This part is truly one of the most creative things ever seen in the show. In my opinion, the only drawback to this episode is that it did feel a little rushed, especially in the future part, and a 22-minute special could have worked better, but still what we got for an 11-minute episode is really good, which is why I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10, putting it above Tea at the Tree Dome but below Bubble Stand.